Many people can agree that the ending of a film is one of the most memorable parts of a movie. After all, it's what everything in the story has been leading up to. It's the film's last chance to make an impression on the viewer, for the film to either go out with a bang or a whimper. Some endings can even make or break a movie in the eyes of the audience. However, just as important is the opening scene. The opening of a film is the director's chance to hook the audience into their story. It's a chance to make an impression and to set up whatever world or characters they have created. Sometimes opening scenes can be one of the most memorable parts of the film. All of these things are especially true in the horror genre. In the horror genre specifically, opening scenes serve a few different purposes, depending upon the film. Many horror films like Halloween and Friday the 13th open with the stalking and eventual death of a character. In both these instances, these scenes serve to introduce to the audience what kind of film they are watching. In this case, a slasher film. They also introduce the audience to the killer, leaving us with a mystery. Why did this 6-year-old kid just kill that woman? Or who just killed these two random teenagers? Hundreds of films have tried to emulate this formula. Some have actually been successful at it, while others, not so much. Heck, Wes Craven even subverted this kind of opening with A Nightmare on Elm Street. The film starts off with Freddy making his weapon, which is creepy enough. Then it cuts to a girl in a boiler room. She is chased by Freddy, and just when you think he's got her, she wakes up. The audience can breathe a sigh of relief, because it was just a dream. Or was it? In most horror films, she would have been killed in the first scene, but instead this film lets her live and allows the fact that this dream, being a little too real, set the audience up for what this film is about to do. Also, this scene ends with this. By God, if that's not a great way to start your horror film, I don't know what is. Of course, not all horror films are made to do the same thing. Some horror films are more about building atmospheres, so they should have an opening that is designed to do that. Films like The Shining, Rosemary's Baby, and more recently The Witch are very slow build horror movies that are all about building atmosphere to a great climax. And so the opening should of course complement that. The Shining is all about a family who goes to a secluded hotel in the mountains, where they will be cut off from the rest of the world. So Kubrick designed an opening that would easily illustrate just how secluded they really are. The opening is shots from overhead, showing a small car go along this long winding road through woods and mountains until we finally see the Overlook Hotel. The ominous music is there to tell the audience that something horrifying will happen to this family. And also, as we get to see how far the car had to travel to get there, we get a good idea of where this hotel is and just how secluded this family is going to be. Rosemary's Baby has an opening that seems at first rather uninteresting. It's just a panning shot of a city. Okay, what's the big deal? Well, what sells this opening is the creepy score that plays over this. It sounds like a woman singing some kind of strange lullaby, and because of the music underneath, it gives the viewer an unsettling feeling. The Witch also has a simple opening. We see a Puritan family being kicked out of their town for having different religious views. We see as the family kneels praying, looking out towards the woods. Ominous music again plays to indicate that something horrific will happen to this family. Yes, as you can probably surmise, music is a great way to get across dread to the audience. Some horror films just have score playing during opening credits to sell the atmosphere up front. In order to assure the audience that horror will in fact come, they just have to wait. Both Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and The Omen do this brilliantly. Of course, just opening up a horror film in either of these two ways means very little if you don't have a good film to follow up. The Bye Bye Man, as bad as that movie is, has a halfway decent opening that does make the audience ask questions. Such as, why is this guy murdering all these people? Why does he keep saying, don't think it, don't say it? But because the answers this movie gives are so damn silly and the movie itself is so bad, anything good this scene may have done gets pissed away. Also, admittedly, this scene is just a cookie-cutter version of the first example I gave. Some horror filmmakers have developed their unique ways of starting their films. Texas Chainsaw Massacre famously starts with the text being read like a news report that tells the audience exactly what is about to happen. Tobe Hooper did this to illustrate how the news media talks about violence, also to help sell the illusion that the movie was, in fact, depicting real events. Blair Witch Project would eventually do this as well, which, of course, countless found footage movies then ripped that off. Some of them are good, while others really weren't. John Carpenter begins his classic film, The Fog, with a man telling a ghost story to a bunch of kids. This serves to set up the tone of this film, that this movie is going to play like a 90-minute ghost story. So what is it that makes a great opening scene for a horror movie? Well, it should be something that puts the audience on edge. Something that gives us a sense of the danger that the characters are about to go through. Some opening scenes, like The Ring and the remake of Dawn of the Dead, are actually just 10 minutes of build-up to a climax. And when you have something like that that's done well, like in those movies, the audience is left going, holy crap, that's your opening? Can't wait to see the rest of this thing. An opening scene can serve to set up what the audience are meant to be afraid of, something that builds the tension so that the audience is on edge right at the start of your film. While a slow build is a very great thing to have, you don't want to start your horror film without any sort of hint of danger. So what are some of my favorite horror opening scenes? Well, A Nightmare on Elm Street comes to mind, which I already talked about. I have tried to showcase as many of my favorite horror film intros in this video as possible, so if it's in this video, apart from of course the Bye Bye Man, Ouija, and Friday the 13th Part 5, then it's one of my favorites. There's a few others that come to mind, such as the opening to Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist, the ominous way Carol Ann starts talking to the TV static, coupled with a brilliant score by Jerry Goldsmith. It's a great way to set up a mystery, especially since it will be a while before anything else strange happens. Both of the Conjuring films start off with introducing the Warrens investigating one of their famous cases. The first movie, of course, starts off with the Annabelle doll, while the second movie starts off with them investigating the Amityville house. Both are great ways to set up the tone of the Conjuring films. Another one I really like is the opening of the original The Evil Dead. It starts with a point-of-view shot of something moving through the woods and swamp. We are also introduced to our 5 characters traveling to the cabin. The ominous sounds and creepy-looking woods give this film a great atmospheric start and sets us up for the creepy film to come. In fact, the Evil Dead remake also has a great opening. It starts with what appears to be a group of people who have tied up an innocent girl until... You're so loud! This is a great way to catch the audience off guard and to set up the horror that will befall our main character. Also, John Carpenter's remake of The Thing from 1982 has a very ominous beginning. It starts with 2 Norwegians in a helicopter chasing a dog through the snow and shooting at it. A little later, after we are introduced to our main characters, we see that the Norwegians have chased the dog all the way to the other base in Antarctica. They continue shooting at the dog before they themselves get killed. This leaves us, the audience, with both an ominous feeling and a whole lot of questions. Also, of course, I have to mention Jaws. Jaws has the iconic opening of a woman going swimming, and we just see the POV of the shark underneath the water as it slowly swims towards her. We then see as she is dragged through the water, crying for help before she is pulled under. We never get to see the shark in this scene. All we get is the point of view of the shark, and then Spielberg just left it up to the audience's imagination what is going on underneath the water. Also, we get that great John Williams score. Also, The Fog, because it's just so simple and so effective. Just telling a ghost story wouldn't be so interesting, but when it's complemented by John Carpenter's brilliant score, it holds so much more weight. And of course, speaking of John Carpenter, I gotta talk about Halloween. Halloween is my all-time favorite horror movie, and it's for many reasons, but one of those reasons is the opening scene. The opening scene is near perfection. It is a perfect example of an atmospheric slow build opening that ends with an opening kill. First, just starting the film with a slow zoom in on a jack-o'-lantern with another brilliant John Carpenter score gives a chilling vibe right at the start. Then we cut to the point of view of Michael Myers as he stalks outside of the Myers house. As he slowly goes inside, then grabs a knife and goes upstairs. And well, we all know what happens next. It's a perfect way to open this movie, and it's just 2 shots. The fact that it's a point of view of the killer gives the audience an unsettling feeling and makes us anticipate when the kill is going to happen. Since it takes its time, the tension is able to build and build, even past the kill, for this great reveal.
Michael?
This right here is brilliant filmmaking. Honestly, I could go on and on, bringing up great openings from horror films. I mean, heck, if a horror film is great, then chances are that the opening is great as well. I mean, go figure, right? So in conclusion, although the ending of a film is vastly important, just as important is the way a film begins in hooking us into the story. The horror genre definitely has some great endings, but even more memorable is the way that many horror films begin.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.